our strategy is not limited only to the user who have knowledge about cryptocurrency, wallet, etc. They might be the first target population right now, those who participated mostly into our land presale, and it's quite natural since there's no game yet. But the way the game is going to be built and the way we are thinking how it's going to be accessible, we're essentially considering how do we offer a full game experience with as friction as possible. No wallet is needed unless you want to trade or cash out.
Layer 1 is a podcast and community dedicated to helping you master all things crypto. We'll be bringing you the best interviews with project executives, technical analysis for trading of the most popular cryptocurrencies, and insight into what's actually happening behind the scenes.
As you join us each episode, you're going to hear about tokens, fundraisers, investments, and even crypto conspiracies. But please remember that nothing we say should be considered financial or legal advice.
Come join us on this journey and welcome to Layer 1. Good morning, good evening, good night. Everyone that has followed Layer 1 up to this point, thank you very much. To our community, we appreciate your support. Guys, we didn't have Solana on the channel this week. They rescheduled, but we do have Sandbox on today, and we're going to release it on Thursday, which is today. So happy to have you along for the journey. I've got Dimitri with me. I've got Sebastien Borget. Hopefully I said that right. We're going to talk everything Sandbox games. We're going to talk their recent sale that actually Layer 1 took part in, so that was fun. We're going to talk NFTs. We're going to talk about gaming. We're going to talk about Ethereum. Ton of stuff. Should be a great episode. But without further ado, Dimitri, let's have an update from you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm super excited. We have another great guest. We obviously are gamers ourselves, so this is going to be super fun. These guys are making ripples in the market for sure. I'm excited to learn more about kind of their future and what they envision Sandbox is going to be, aside from what it is now and what we're seeing right now, because there's definitely a lot of excitement in the market for the land and all the sales that they had. So congrats on their success this far. And Sebastien, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Hi Q, hi Dimitri. Hi for the second time today. So we're going to have a great conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you at home, we tried to record this at 8 a.m. Eastern this morning. We had some technical difficulties.
Yes,
so
my bad.
No, listen, it's nobody's fault. It's going to actually be a better interview now. Now that we're wide awake, it had 3 cups of coffee, all that good stuff. So before we get to the future, as Dimitri pointed out, let's talk about your past. Let's talk about your education. Let's talk about your history in tech and how you found yourself in crypto.
All right. So my name is Sebastien. I'm 34 years old. I started in 2007 with my partner and co-founder, Arturo Madrid, with the first company that he created, which was developing a plugin for the browser using the peer-to-peer BitTorrent technology. So one of the very first decentralized application of this technology. Enabling video on demand and catch-up TV website to save on their bandwidth costs. Working with TV channels in France, Roland Garros, media websites, etc. We sold the company 2 years after to a CDN network. Then we funded in 2008 a service called Wixie, which was enabling users to upload photo, video, music in the cloud and share them with their friends, create playlists, etc. and access everything in streaming. We had dozens of thousands paying monthly subscribers, and we were able to sell the company 2 years after. Then in 2011, we started our third company, which is called Pixel. It's a mobile game studio. We've been focused on creating builder games involving, on one side, brands. So popular brands like Garfield, Snoopy, Goosebumps, the Addams Family more recently, as well as our main flagship title, which is The Sandbox. We launched it in 2012. We also launched a sequel in 2016. And with this game, user-generated content game where players could make their own 2D pixel worlds on their mobile. We had over 40 million installs and a large community and user base of 1 million monthly active users. And this is the title that gave the sequel is now this new 3D version, multiplayer and blockchain enabled, that I'm going to talk about with you today. We sold Pixel to Animoca Brands in the middle of 2018, and then we founded the new company, TSB Gaming, only dedicated to the Sandbox. This time focusing on creating this 3D multiplayer platform for where creators can make voxel asset, game experience, and monetize them through the use of blockchain and non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, there's a ton of questions to get there from like a macro level. I think there's an understanding that like building games are something that's becoming more popular in the crypto space. But in 2013, and I didn't know this before the podcast, that Sandbox existed outside of the version that you guys have rolled out now, that you recently had that sale for. But in 2013, what pushed you toward building games in general? Specific, not like building the physical game, but building type games. What pushed you toward that genre?
Well, it's a great question. Essentially, around 2011, 2012 was this new area that the iPhone and the Android phones enable, where you could make video game again from your garage, just one guy developing, etc. And having been passionate by technology and playing video games all my life, I really wanted at some point to get involved into creating games. But back then, creating games meant like making like mostly premium or console AAA games, needing like large team of 100, 200, 300 people working on like blockbusters games for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years sometimes. And that was not accessible. So what the iPhone and the Android, the Google Play ecosystem enabled is that they made making video game accessible to almost everyone again. And we decided to be early and pioneer there, already adopt the freemium model with in-app purchase, and being one of the first adopters, we've been able to gain success and maintain this company through the year without raising funds after the initial seed round. And I think essentially with the new Sandbox, we're kind of repeating history. Like we are becoming pioneers again with this new opportunity, market opportunity through technology. But we are also leveraging specific assets that are part of this journey we had. This is the third episode of this series. We are working on it for 8 years now. So we consider our Sandbox almost like our baby project, our child project. Now it's growing. It's not growing to the size of what Minecraft and Roblox have been growing over this last decade, which is like 100 million monthly active users and more. But we are hopeful that with this third time, with all the key elements that we've started to deploy, all the major gaming partners that we have, the technologies, all the engagement, all the traction that we are seeing with our land Presale, that we have the ingredient for success this year.
Nice. Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. You know, it's interesting that you talk about the first kind of mover advantage there when you first, started the first part of it on just mobile, and you made it free, while, a lot of apps before were paid. So I'm guessing that kind of helped you guys get the mass adoption and users there, using that strategy. But did you guys monetize it through, advertising there, or, how were you able to monetize the users that were coming in there, that were essentially getting this app for free?
Do you mean on the mobile version or on a new version?
Yeah, on the mobile version, yep.
Oh, on the mobile, so yes, we have a really content-driven strategy with live ops, which consists like in releasing on a regular period every 3 weeks or a month new content. And these content were essentially a new game mechanics and new elements that we were designing. So essentially the user-generated content aspect of the initial mobile version was on making worlds, not making the elements, the game asset that populate those worlds, until we introduced it quite late in 2018. And then we saw like the explosion of like how, oh wow, the diversity of all those games, etc., has been multiplied like tenfold with just the same core game mechanics like platformer, runner, shooter, Pac-Man, action game, shooter game, etc. But now with enabling creators to make their own characters and our enemies, reskin them, change some mechanics, we saw a great potential. But at the same time, what we also saw is like our users were really devoting literally hours or days to those creation, and they only were earning virtual currency that they could only spend inside the mobile game again to buy new elements. So somehow all this value creation that we saw existed couldn't really fully potentially exploit it for them, and it stayed more like a hobby, quite limited. So when we see what non-fungible tokens enable and the use of cryptocurrency with this new sandbox in 3D, we are really excited of the more open, permissionless, decentralized value creation potential.
Yeah, I think that's tough for people who maybe aren't within the NFT space or maybe outside of cryptocurrency to kind of understand how blockchain unlocks those like traditionally like closed loop economies, and it opens it up to kind of like a connection to maybe the traditional economies that we have now, and being able to earn USD and things like that and actually take it out of the game. I wanted to wait on this question, but it looks like we've already gotten to it. Are you targeting outside users and trying to bring them in the millions, kind of the drove that you talked about with Minecraft, where you could take like a small market share of what Minecraft has, and that would be very beneficial to you guys, to crypto? Or are you kind of starting from the grassroots perspective of saying, you know what, we're going to kind of create this culture within cryptocurrency or within blockchain, and people will find their way here? Which route are you specifically going? Are you trying to target the non-crypto user, or are you trying to build this community from within and other people on the outside kind of seeing, hey, I want to be a part of this?
So definitely we're aiming for like reaching 1 million monthly active players as well within like 2 to 3 years. So our strategy is not limited only to the user who have knowledge about cryptocurrency, wallet, etc. They might be the first target population right now, those who participated mostly into our land presale, and it's quite natural since there's no game yet. But the way the game is going to be built and the way we are thinking how it's going to be accessible, we're essentially considering how do we offer a full game experience with as friction as possible. No wallet is needed unless you want to trade or cash out, where at this point only specifically you will need it. And to your example mentioning CryptoKitties, so they were the true pioneers, starting things back in 2017 together with CryptoPunk, and that's how we got involved with our parent company Animoca Brands, making a small investment in Dapper Lab, the parent company which created CryptoKitties, and Sandbox as well being born around this new the new Sandbox being born at this moment. And we are seeing faces through games over years. So in 2018 and 2019, we've seen mostly games that adopt the same mechanics as CryptoKitties, mostly focused on the collectible aspect, but lacking essentially a gameplay, a utility behind. And now, since the late 2019, and we'll see it a lot more in 2020, we're finally seeing games that are really similar, or the quality is on par with the PC or mobile or console game, that are also using blockchain technology, but not necessarily saying they are blockchain first, they are game first, and they are eating market. And the main reason is like it takes time to make great game. So this CryptoVoxels is an idea that was born and concretized in almost a week. So it's almost like the exception. But when you want to build the kind of gameplay that 2020 gamers want to enjoy, it takes years or more. And so that's why this moment of mass adoption has not yet happened. We've seen challenges with the technology, with legislation and legal side as well, and just the time it takes to make the good game. But when I look now and I see like how Blankos, how Skywaver, Gods Unchained, and other games are coming to market, I think we are starting, and the current pandemic situation that makes that most people are home, ready to play new games, try experience, and even potentially try to make some money with it. I think it's a great combination, and we can see something quite interesting coming up from there.
Yeah, I remember.
So I'm quite bullish on that.
Yeah, and I am too. And I want to hear more thoughts on where you think kind of the NFT space grows in on that timeline. But I remember like specifically Pixios is a great example of kind of an NFT marketplace that I feel like might have been ahead of its time, maybe like a year and a half too early, and therefore kind of like lost the steam that it had. But I think a lot of the projects that are starting now, like Sandbox is a great example. You have that marketplace, like OpenSea is another reason I believe that there's like a success for these NFT projects. You can instantly go on to OpenSea and trade already assets that you bought from the Sandbox presale, where a project like Decentraland, you might have had to wait a year and a half to trade this on like some type of secondary marketplace. So I want to talk about your guys' success with these sales, specifically why you think even during bear markets that we've seen where we're kind of like at the depth, a lot of people are 80, 60, 70% down on their assets or crypto assets over time, at least from all-time highs. Why do you think that these land pre-sales are so successful? And take us through kind of like a day in the life of one of these sales. Cause I know they start at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We were there. We were able to get in a couple of states and still do have those and are excited for the launch. But take us through kind of a day, like start to finish your day on one of these sales, as well as why you think they're successful even in a bear market.
Well, I think essentially first, before we jump into the success of a pre-sale, which is only like the tip of the iceberg, like what you see, but it's hiding a lot of preparation work, thoughts being put in the product, and communication, marketing, etc. Is like, why does it make sense for a project like us to have a pre-sale, and does it make sense for any project to have a pre-sale? It doesn't necessarily. It makes sense because we are a user-generated content platform, meaning like in the case of Sandbox, we offer a virtual world where creators are going to make the content, the assets that are populating their game. And there is a reason for having a map and a lens. It is because it is the digital space where the players are going to all come together, collaborate, play against each other, chat, interact, walk, and the games are going to be published by their creators on their land. So that's the overall design already of this idea of a metaverse, a virtual world, is very friendly to the idea of selling part of the map, part of the land in advance. The way I like to think of it is like if we had the Steam store or the App Store, the Google Play Store, but instead of having millions and millions of games, you have like really a limited number of apps, let's say 100,000. We have like 166,000 lands on our side, and there will be never any more. Then the strategy is already very different on how you're going to enable the game developer to to publish the game and use this available space. You're not going to just accept at any time anyone, but you're trying to put in place a strategy where you control the supply, you release it progressively, and you're building the momentum progressively as well. So that's a part of our strategy. We've organized the distribution of this land essentially in 4 rounds of pre-sale followed by a public sale. We kept a good amount of the land, 15% in total, in reserve for partners and additional incentive as part of our creators fund. And we started very small. So back in December 2019, we did our first round of pre-sale, just selling 2.5% of the map. That was the equivalent of $100,000 in ETH back then. And we combined this pre-sale with a series of marketing actions of communication several months ahead, leading to this single day where all happens in that short time frame. We've done over, back then it was 19 partnerships, showing not just that the partners we have been very diverse. They included Shaun the Sheep, which is like a quite popular brand. Many people are familiar with around the world. We involved traditional game companies, and we involved key actors from the blockchain ecosystem as well. And they've used this map as landmarks as well, to be present forever on the metaverse, attract their community. And overall, we also introduced progressive discount. So the first round of this pre-sale had a 40% discount on a fixed price per land. So every land by default is $50. It's first come, first serve. There's no auction, there's no speculation around it. So if you miss buying the land exactly where you want at the time, and you're not the first, then it's gone. And the only option for you to get it is then to go on a secondary marketplace like OpenSea. So all these different factors contributed to a rather successful first pre-sale back in December. And I remember I was with my team in Argentina, and within like just 1 hour, we had this large screen showing all the parcel going green, meaning like players and users, creators, artists, everyone who were interested in Sandbox buying their lands really quickly. We did again a second one in February, on February 11th. At that time, I was with my team in Korea this time. Since we are quite a decentralized team, we're like 40 people around Argentina, France, and Korea, just FYI. And we doubled the amount of land, going 5% of the total supply, just nearby the first portion, and 30% discount on the price this time. We had a roster of other partnerships. We did get involved as well, very much into AMAs, into talks with the community, replying openly to the question they had about our vision around the product, showing more of the product, announcing partnership with game academies who are going to use Sandbox to make games with their students. So like using Unity, then you have also Sandbox as a game maker. And overall, it's the same story repeated, like within a couple of hours, everything was gone. So that was another validation that all this strategy was working, and there's really interest into what we are building, not just for the land by themselves, but essentially the vision we are paving. And the story goes on until March 31st. We have this third round of pre-sale. We keep having regular chat with our community, opening a question every week. We publish on social media videos of games created by some of the community members. And we announced a major gaming partner, Atari, that has presence on this metaverse, and we'll have this Atari virtual theme park where players that will serve as a social hub where players can come, chat, interact, and play around both the retro games from Atari or the like roller coaster like attractions together. We also finally announced one of our major investors, which is Square Enix, the video game company as well. And well, as you know, within just 5 hours, we've been able to sell 10% of the total map supply this time for a total of 3,400 ETH, so the equivalent of $450,000 back then. But what to me, the success is a success of the team, all of this community management that we've been doing, all the effort that the developers are putting around creating this game maker and showing the content, like example of games that are made with this game maker. And the result of that is that we have an increased number of landowners who are particularly excited by the idea of being able to create game and publish game near just next gaming giant. And well, there's even bigger coming, not for round 4, but overall, like when we are going to launch publicly the Sandbox, the way we are seeing is like, I'm seeing it like a console launch with a lineup of major partners and major IPs and fun games. And I hope it's going to be quite exciting as well to follow that.
Yeah, you guys have done a phenomenal job building up this hype. And for those people at home, I will kind of drop a link in the description here so that you could check out kind of a finished product of at least that land pre-sale that happened, because it was a really cool experience. There was like shades of ICOs a little bit, because me and Dimitri both worked at ICO Alert, but there was like a shade of an ICO process where you had a set time where this pre-sale was opening up. And obviously, you guys are within Ethereum. So basically what happened was at 10 a.m. Eastern time, this map like opened up. You saw all of the land kind of be created. And then green dots started to pop up. And you're like, oh, my God, I need to get in right now. I got to add this gas fee, all that stuff. We were able to, get some land and have some really cool spots there next to Atari and next to Roller Coaster Tycoon, which should be fun. We're interested.
Should be fun, yes.
Yeah, we are interested in that. I'm wondering, and my question, I guess, would be, what are the role of speculators as you see them within these environments? Because again, me and Dimitri, we worked at ICO Alert. We were part of that ICO boom and bust. Also in 2018, there was that gambling kind of boom, at least on a lot of the proof of stake networks that could handle those processes. So kind of like when I'm trading land, especially on some other platforms, maybe like CryptoVoxels and Decentraland, I get kind of like a shade of both of these events, right? You get ICOs where speculators are kind of trying to buy low and sell higher. And certainly like those have roles in your system, but I wonder what you think about speculators within these systems. Certainly you don't want like 100% of your user base to be just trying to buy these lands up just to sell them for maybe more expensive. What do you think about these speculators within your like niche right now?
Well, I think it's part of the game in a sense. Like we're encouraging to have like users the capacity to monetize and make some revenue with those NFTs. And the game is not yet there. So the only element that the speculators can play with is essentially the land or the first asset that we sold. But the way we have designed our pre-sale of land and the pricing of the lands, having like all of them at a maximum price of $50, and the degressive discount plus the compound discount when you buy larger parcel, gives the possibility to make some revenue on the secondary market, but it's capped. So unless there's buyers who are really willing to pay more, and they know they are paying more based on the locations, it's not a system that is natively designed for speculation. Whereas in some other virtual games, the lands do not have this cap price or floor price. So it's really like whoever has the most money coming in will buy them and can resell them at any other price afterward. And I don't say any model is bad. Actually, it's good to have both. And overall, the current industry being too small, and there's a lot of overlap anyway in between the owner of land across all those different projects, so like Decentraland, CryptoVoxels, Somnium Space, High Fidelity, and the Sandbox, which I think is great to see and taste all the different experience, and also see how each of these different virtual worlds, decentralized game is going to, what their USP, how they differ from each other. And from what I see on the data, that's public, openly available on the blockchain, we have roughly 15-20% of, I would say, land flipper. But so far, all the others, they just hold to their land, and they hold to their land through all the different pre-sale, which seems to be a healthy metric.
Nice. Yeah. My question would be, from those partners that are getting, the discount, if there's any type of lockups that you guys would have, but it seems like you guys don't, but there is a mechanic there, right? Where if it goes to open market, then there might not necessarily be a buyer for that just yet. Is that, am I getting that correctly? Or is there some type of lockup period for these investors who got in cheap?
No, it doesn't. It's really permissionless trading. Like in the minute people bought land, there were already some available on OpenSea and other secondary marketplace. What we are giving to the partners, so it's different than just regular users who buy land. Partners, they have specific spots on the maps that have been reserved and where their logo is. So if they decide to sell those lands, then it's no longer theirs. So they are losing the opportunity to have their position, which usually we try to make well thought in the original design, and the capacity to offer to their community like a virtual space where the users can come, can chat, can interact with them into a 3D virtual world environment, which is now with the current pandemic, what a lot of users are looking for, like to come and socialize in digital space, since they cannot do it outside anymore. And a lot of our partners are quite excited about what they're going to build inside the game, like inside their land as a game, like MakerDAO as an example as this project of Die City, which will be like a town with monuments, like a giant tower, etc. So it's going to be fun.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna say, during this time, during the pandemic, obviously, like you mentioned, everybody's kind of sitting at home and they're using a lot of games or virtual environments to meet and do all these things. And I thought of, well, right now for these type of games, this is a huge opportunity because, just first thought comes to mind, you could even like host conferences there, on the platform like this. So, like, do you see something like this happening maybe later on? Maybe we'll have like a crypto conference that can be hosted on Sandbox. And where are you guys in terms of, rolling this out where you can take advantage of this opportunity right now while everybody's kind of still sitting home on quarantines,
So I'm already seeing other virtual world decentralized projects taking this opportunity. There's been an increase of users coming together and socializing inside CryptoVoxel. There's this CoinFest 3 or 4 day festival happening in Decentraland. Next week, I'm going to talk to a conference which is blocked down, and this whole conference is happening into a 3D virtual world. I don't know if it's decentralized or not, but it's I love the idea that we are into virtual worlds with our avatars, connecting with very popular figure of the industry who watching the stream, etc. We are not yet live, as you know. We'll be launching Sandbox more toward the second half of this year, so we are not particularly seizing the opportunity to grow our user base at the moment. I think down the line, yes, definitely. And we have a different value proposition than Decentraland or CryptoVoxels that have been mostly focusing into displaying art or being place where people meet up, chat, do virtual conference, do sometimes listening to music and DJ, etc. I don't say we won't have that. Definitely, we're working to have features to enable artists, crypto artists, to import the NFTs and show their art, etc. But the key differentiator, I think, is we are really, and that's our background, we are coming from gaming. So we want to offer a platform that's going to be a social MMORPG where you have your avatar, you need to complete quests with your character, you will play, fight.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of and you can already see that in some of the video we publish on a weekly basis, like the level design involved and how you're going to get into obstacle, collect resource, fight enemies, fight big boss, or play collaborative quizzes, etc. Well, the possibilities are going to be quite unlimited. So that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, that seems like a much heftier goal than a lot of the other virtual worlds are kind of going after. I've noticed these art communities kind of pop up within CryptoVoxels and Decentraland, like you talked about. Man, I was going to ask an art question, but I was going to ask an art question, but I feel like you just threw me off with, when you said an MMORPG within one of these metaverses. That seems like a really hefty goal. So from a like early 2021 perspective, like give the elevator pitch to maybe a new user. What does Sandbox look like? I'm logging in, I created an account, I create that avatar, and I hop into the world. What does Sandbox look like from like a user perspective?
That's a great question, and so you're going to come on our dashboard. The first step is you create your avatar. That's your personal character that you can customize. And with this avatar, you're going to enter the virtual world, either from the map or from the game launcher. And you have access to several experiences. So you can decide either to join one of those specific games, or you can just mingle around into our what I would call social hubs, which are those blue square on our map that we kept in reserve. And you can enter games. So let's say there's a level that's been designed where you can play up to 32 or 64 players together per instance. You have to fight an enemies, either a large boss or multiple wave of enemies until you defeat them. And you're going to be able to level up your avatar and your gear. So that's why we think it's quite inspired from traditional RPG. And completing those quests with many players at the same time is going to be one of the exciting things to do. But it's the idea is we want to provide an experience that will satisfy all the kind of players. So there's something called the Bartle taxonomy of players, which consists into the socializer, the achievers, the killers, the explorers, and we have the creators. So we need to offer an experience that essentially satisfy all of them and keep engaging players coming back into the virtual world to see how it evolves and always have new goals to complete. So you never feel like you finish and you run out of content and experience. And I cannot unveil everything, but we are working with great people in the space. We have just Chris Chapman, who is working with us now. He's been involved into MMORPG like MMOs like Club Penguins or Disney Infinities, and working for 20 years in the video game industry. He has amazing ideas that I'm quite excited to implement inside Sandbox.
Yeah, I want to add one more category there. When you talked about the different type of players within these games, you got to have an area for PvP. The only reason I play video games is to make the guy on the other end of the screen upset at me
Well,
beating him.
that,
So,
that's those killers, I think.
oh, okay,
All right.
gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's zoom out a little bit. You are now, and I don't know the nomination process, but you are the head of the Blockchain Gaming Alliance. What initiatives are you guys seeing with the BGA, and what are you doing on like a week to week basis as the head of BGA?
Right. So I've been recently elected the new president of the Blockchain Game Alliance, the BGA in short. And our role is to help all the different members. So we have 90 members as of now, and it's growing. I'm bringing new members. And I want to help those companies to get more revenue, more users, and more recognition, not just within the blockchain ecosystem but more towards the traditional gaming industry. So how do we promote the use of blockchain technology towards the bigger gaming industry? And how do we create more business opportunities for them is one of my main goals. What I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, I think I'm just getting into it. So I have some plans to enable more networkings between the members, but also with just companies of coming from the traditional gaming industry. Like Square Enix join, we have AMD, we have Ubisoft as well, and other Animoca brands and other members. And I'm going to put in place different strategies, such as more PR, more social media presence. We are going to open a YouTube channel where they can showcase their project and we can give visibility. I'm going to organize kind of like webinars or virtual meetings where we all discuss on specific topic and engage more knowledge sharing, and also we really see how we can not only focus on blockchain or non-fungible tokens, but also approach what is decentralization and how overall it can benefit players, game developers, etc. So I'm taking on, this is quite a young association. It's non-profit, started in September 2018 by founding members from Ultra, Ubisoft, B2 Expand, Altitude Games, Consensus, and Engine, if I'm correct. Everdreamsoft as well. And I think we are seeing already good results so far.
No, that sounds fantastic. Hearing some of the partners like, Ubisoft, part of it definitely puts a smile on my face. And when you said there's going to be a PvP in there, that definitely lit me up because, I'm like you, I'm interested in that specific sector of the game. So yeah, that's super interesting, having these partners. And, we've talked about how these games and decentralization, crypto, how it can be implemented into games, but we really haven't seen a game, that's pretty big that has done that. And, in crypto community, everybody's expecting things to move quick, right? They want things like tomorrow, right? But it takes a lot of time to really develop a really, really good game. What do you think of like Ubisoft, for example, and some of these other big companies like Blizzard and so on, right? You think they're, eventually they're going to start moving along into, making some kind of a crypto or, blockchain decentralization gaming down the road? Are they actively right now researching that aggressively to stay competitive? Because, it doesn't seem like, we hear headlines kind of here and there, but nothing really materialized just yet. What is what are you hearing right now from the big guys there?
Well, I know for sure that the bigger companies are looking closely at what's possible to do with blockchain. That's why Square Enix, for example, is one of our investors, and they have a several team members looking into potential application. The same with Ubisoft. They have an innovation lab that's looking in how blockchain technology can be used more widely across all their portfolio of games, and how this technology fits on their 10 years roadmap of what will games be like in 10 years, not in visual, in graphic, in user experience, but also potentially in business models as well. However, those are big companies. They tend to move more slowly. They have also their own legal obligation, etc. So it's not as easy as us to be like first movers, pioneers, etc. That's why we have this first mover advantage. But overall, I'm really confident that those announcements that you can read about is just, again, the tip of the iceberg, and there's much more research that those big companies are doing, but they cannot yet really publicly communicate around. And we'll see come. Like
I mentioned this earlier, but there is kind of a niche within a niche with this art community that's popped up, or these specific art communities that popped up on both Decentraland and CryptoVoxels. I don't know how much they overlap, but I wonder, like, what do you make of the art community being, and I don't have the actual numbers on percentage of what they make up of the whole populations of these metaverses, but what do you make of these art communities within CryptoVoxels, Decentraland, and where do you see their place as it relates to Sandbox?
It's a good question. I think first, as a user, I'm super impressed every time I see on social media those words, or when I walk inside CryptoVoxel and I look around, I say, oh, wow, that's the fact that these crypto artists are able to use those virtual world platform to display their art, and they've begun this movement, engaging more and more users around it. It grows naturally, and the success of product, a good part of the success of Decentraland and CryptoVoxel really comes from this adoption by this target audience. So it's always the best, like when you develop a product and you find your, I would say, niche. It doesn't mean like it's small, or it can be a million users niche, but and this user base is super sticky, super engaged with the product, makes amazing content on your platform, and helps you grow as well. That's really the perfect story, and we've seen stories like that even with Minecraft. Like that's essentially the beginning of Minecraft before it became the mainstream, mostly played by kids. Was initially like more adult user playing on themselves and trying to recreate countries, cities, etc. So I'm really impressed and amazed by this, and I wish that we can offer in Sandbox the tools that will also enable this community to create the stuff they want, and they will see some value proposition. We have among our learners indeed some crypto artists, but because we came later, we are coming later to market. We are not yet there. I think they are just keeping an eye on us, but still continuing their business and their activity, and where they are really good and successful. So I think it's essentially like showing that we can be a second home to them potentially, or we can offer something different where they can keep doing their amazing art gallery, content, events, meetups, and potentially enjoy a different experience with us. We'll see if it takes.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that I had while within these NFT worlds, these metaverses, is like they're one of the first places where NFTs can actually interact with each other, whereas it's always been kind of sectored out. So like my CryptoKitty can't interact with my Cheese Wizard, but actually within the metaverse, you get a situation where they can interact together, if that makes any sense. So places where these NFTs are interacting together, I think are really interesting, because we've specifically been kind of separated for a long time. So it's nice to see. I want to get at kind of the heart of your thinking here. What do you think from like a macro perspective drives people to play these metaverses and really get involved in these digital worlds? What because you're obviously the head of one of the games that's going to push this world forward, at least in the blockchain sense. What pushes people to play these games to get more digital? I wonder what your thinking is there, just from like a philosophical perspective. I know that's a tough question, open-ended, but if you have an answer.
Well, maybe the best is just to interview one of those users and the creators in those space to get. Well, I think that's essentially this idea that what the technology has enabled, the fact that they finally can own their creation, they can own their character, they can really build businesses inside those worlds and fully monetize them in the way they want. It's a very different value proposition to what existing other virtual worlds that are not blockchain-based enabled. And you cannot do that in Minecraft, you cannot do that in Roblox. You might have been able to do it in Second Life, but in quite restricted ways, and only the money was actually tokenized, not the content. So that was inside a more constrained, closed world ecosystem again. And the fact that we can have like interoperable virtual worlds that are based on the blockchain, that are transparent, permissionless, and that's what really excited them to move into a space that can exist forever and provide new opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you also, decentralization is great, and having permissionless access and all that stuff promotes, more users to kind of get in and do their thing. But sometimes, we do find situations where openness like that can also create some toxic content, players or the community, maybe subsectors of it, and certain things like that. So if you have a complete decentralized platform, from what I'm understanding, like there's no way to censor, let's say, something if the art, is starting to be displayed like that's inappropriate or toxic or whatnot, right? So we're giving full power to the community to do whatever they want on this platform, no restrictions, right? Hands down, right? Is that kind of the understanding of it? Is there going to be like maybe a way for the community to maybe, let's say, get rid of some of the toxic population there by making votes, or I don't know, like some kind of a mechanic there? That question. And also want to ask you about the stores, so there's going to be like stores that you can open up as a person. You can design maybe specific clothes for the avatar, or like an items that you can get, right, that you can sell, and then you get the revenue, right, as a player, right?
Yep. You have a marketplace where you can sell your creation made with the Vox Edit, which is our 3D voxel editor. So and you earn 100% revenue on the price you sell as a creator. You define the scarcity of those. So that's one of the unique aspects of Sandbox as well. It's not just you create the virtual world, but you also create the content, the skins, the gear for your avatar, the game assets, the enemies, the characters, the decoration, etc. So that's also something a bit different from the other project. Back to your question about the kind of content that you can create and whether it's really appropriate or not, and what we can do about it. So we have experience running user-generated content platform for like 8 years now. So yes, we've seen a lot of things happening, even on the mobile version. And I have this funny memory, like even in the worst kind of content, in terms of ethic, like maybe like profanity, nudity, there is art. So I've seen people drawing amazing things, pixel art, but of nudes or profane things. So they spent literally hours in doing that. So, but it was against the term of service, so we had to remove that. That's the first start. in the Sandbox and the new version and a more decentralized platform, what we still have our term of service, which are not going to allow to do nudity or profanity. But if you do and you publish on the blockchain such content, this content will exist forever on the blockchain. So we cannot remove it from the blockchain itself. What we can do, however, is we've put in place a decentralized curation system where, as a curator, you can review the content that's on the marketplace or inside games. You can stake your sand, which will be the utility token powering the Sandbox platform, to report this content. And depending on the amount of staking, moderation team will review those, and if they deem you were right, you will actually earn back your stake plus what the creator had to stake to upload the content. So there's in this sort of like a DAO of curation, there's an incentive for people to report what they think is bad, and they are not going to report it if they know they are wrong. So, and there's an incentive for creators to not upload content that is bad because they know some people are just there to earn revenue on it. So
yeah, I hate to ask you this question this late in the episode because we are coming up at least closer to the end here, but this sand economic model, because I really think it's important for the users to understand what sand is, as well as the utility of the actual token. Because I've heard stories, at least within the Discord, that you could like rent your parcel out and receive sand for it and things like that. So what do you envision the use case and the utility of this sand token being?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward that we can finally publish everything about sand on our website. So we have on purpose restrained the information available because we didn't want to publish anything until it's pure final and approved, so we could pass all the legislation and etc. to make our sand token, which is a utility token. And it will serve, I can say that it serves essentially as a medium of transaction on a marketplace. It'll serve for governance, curation, and staking mechanism. So you can also use it to rent your land parcel, and other game creators then can rent your land to publish a game, and in exchange you will receive on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis a certain fixed amount of sand.
Interesting.
And we're working on how many more mechanics around the sand token that make sense in a decentralized virtual world metaverse platform.
Interesting. Yeah, I could foresee a lot of use cases.
Exciting.
Yeah, it could be a lot of use cases for voting with your sand, maybe a governance structure. You mentioned a DAO. Could you imagine a metaverse DAO where you actually have like a location where like the capital exists and things like that? I'm getting off topic here. Anything in one thing I do want to touch.
But that's the beauty of the system, that like we can also provide just the base layer, and the community can start creating things like their own DAO, their own clan, require NFTs, require specific governance right to enter, vote, and potentially earn through it. And there's projects that like MetaClan that maybe you heard about that are like essentially using this, where you need to own specific NFTs and DAI to be part of clans and earn a split of the revenue of the DAO. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we're actually I wouldn't say that we've pledged to MetaClan or MetaFactory, but we're certainly in those Telegram groups. We had Drew Harding on from MetaFactory, who heads up that group.
He's one of our partner on that as well.
Amazing. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. That was a great episode we had. We are, again, like I said, we are coming up to the end of the episode. Before we ask these last two kind of general questions, was there anything we left out as far as Sandbox is concerned? I know you guys have that 4th pre-sale. We don't have a date yet. Maybe we can squeeze a date out of you. But anything as it relates
Not
to
yet.
Sandbox?
I don't even have it myself.
Okay.
So
Okay. Well, make sure to message us first, so that we know ahead of time. But anyways, if you don't have anything else for Sandbox, I did have a very general question. Then we get to a book question. But as a general type of question, we have a bunch of guests on from all areas of the world, and we like to ask kind of how the crypto and blockchain sectors are evolving within those countries. So certainly, you're in Paris. Where is the blockchain and cryptocurrency space within France right now?
it's a it's a tricky question because I don't look so much at what's the ecosystem in France. Um, we're an international team. I'm looking at the space in Argentina. I go so often to Korea to look what's happening there, and like I don't spend enough time at home to see what are the local projects that's worth. There's just a few one now, like Geico. There's Consensus in France. There's Ledger, of course. So Rare, which is doing like crypto football collectibles. Are the few one that come to mind, but I feel ashamed that I don't know so much our local space.
No, that's absolutely fine. I was going to ask you, if there's any like regulatory issues with France and running, crypto, or like restrictions, that are the regulations typically kind of open to discussion, or they're like, no, they're very strict on crypto companies in France, if you know.
Well, in France, we have the AMF, which is the authority of monetary financial regulations, which has put in place a specific framework for crypto-related activity, ICO, and business. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have on top of my mind any crypto project specifically incorporated in France that's launched and passed through successfully that framework. The main reason why is because I've been looking at more legislation around Singapore, Hong Kong, or Malta, where we are based. And so I'm pretty familiar with what's the framework in Malta for the DLT, but because that's where we are from.
Gotcha. No, that sounds awesome. Yeah, and the last question that we ask our guests is if you have, a book recommendation that you can give to us and the viewers. It could be related to crypto, it could not be related to crypto. Any type of book that you read recently, or it's all-time favorite, kind of like old book, that you could share with us.
Yeah, give me a second. I'll I think that would be a good conclusion. Oh, wow. Who owns the future?
Interesting. Give us a quick description. What's going on with Who Owns the Future? Besides Who Owns the Future?
Well, you tricked me. I have to read it. So now I'm like book collector. But that's the key question I'd like to ask you. Like, who owns the future? Probably our landowners own a part of it, and I hope all the companies that chose to use blockchain technology and participate in this ecosystem, being pioneers there, as well, are owning a part of the future.
Sebastien, this has been a great episode. Let the listeners, let the viewers know where to find you, and we'll send you off.
It's pretty easy. It's so on Telegram, Sebastien Borget. On Twitter, Borget Sebastien. So you have to type it on the screen. But yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. And then Sandbox, where can they find more?
Yeah, sandbox.game. That's the easiest one.
Great. Nice. Great episode. We appreciate having you on twice in one day. I think you're the first guest we've had on twice in one day, but we appreciate you coming on and talking to us about Sandbox and Who Owns the Future.
Same. It's been very fun. Thanks, Q. Thanks, Dimitri. Cheers.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to check out Layer 1 on all the audio and video platforms listed in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.